to, and recording, Mr. Tyler Morton, author of From Kites to Cold War, just over his shoulder, conveniently placed. But also you will notice there is no American flag, which is why I have contacted the Gestapo to have him and perhaps his family disciplined. I think it's only fair I'm going to just start saying some shit that's going to be taken out of context. So
yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, what's going on? Did you watch that? Did you watch the video with Charlie Duke?
I did. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched part of it though, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. I've been sending that to so many people and just like,
yeah,
I'm just like jumping down their throats. I'm like, did you watch it? I don't know if you know this, but he walked on the moon. Did you? Yeah. Moon. Joe Rogan, no moonwalkers. Just saying.
Right. You know what's cool is I live on Langley Air Force Base, right? Yeah. And that's where the Mercury astronauts did all their initial training. Yeah. So, like all the stuff around me, the headquarters of the early NASA's right behind me, right over here. So yeah, we started getting a little more into the early astronauts and stuff. And Disney Plus has that new Right Stuff series on.
Yeah.
It's been pretty cool. We watched the first 3 episodes already. So, yeah, it's pretty neat. That's not what you want to talk about though.
What? No, it's not. But I was just I'm still in like I can't, like, my brain can't wrap around the fact that he walked on the moon. It doesn't compute. But yeah.
And then you followed up with me.
Yeah, I know, right?
What a drop! God.
I know, right? No, I had on. I thought I did one yesterday. Yeah, I did one yesterday. I was just like, man, David Lippy. I was like, man, no one can really follow it well. I was just like, man, someone's just walking into just footprints the size of North America.
Right, good. I didn't realize you'd done one after that. So
you're good. There's a buffer. You're good. You're clear. Because now you just got to beat David, and you just beat that episode yesterday. Hey, we're on the up and up again. But God, man, no one was getting out of that one alive. You walked in after the moon guy. Podcast should have ended. But with the moon, let's pull it back 7 years. Cuban Missile Crisis, what is that? 58 years ago?
Right about now, right? 58 years ago.
Yeah.
Closest we ever came to going to nuclear war, according to some people.
Do you think that was?
I don't know. I've studied it a lot. And the cool thing is now all the CIA reports and all the notes from within the administration are all kind of declassified, so you can piece together a lot of it. And I don't know. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but there was a lot of talk between Khrushchev and Kennedy going on pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It was close. I mean, the thing is, in those days, a couple guys make the wrong decisions, and crap just gets out of hand, and
it just takes off.
Next thing you know, there's a tactical nuke being dropped. Right.
That's the crazy part. Is that wasn't like live satellite uplinks and like head cam GoPros. Like
right.
That was what? That was 17 years removed from World War II.
Yeah. General LeMay was the chief of staff of the Air Force, and he was ready.
he was. There are several quotes from him where he's like, "Man, if we were lucky, it would have been World War III, but unfortunately, we got out of it." People are just like, "What? What did you say?" But have you ever listened to that tape of him and Kennedy talking? And he's like, "Well, Mr. President, you're in a tough spot." And Kennedy was like, "I believe you're here with me." But LeMay was just very much like, "Oh no, like I don't care. You're in a tough spot geopolitically."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah."
I mean, you got to remember who LeMay was, right? I mean, he was born in battle, literally. That guy was born to be a bomber guy. He took care of everything in England, and then he flew over to Japan and took care of them too. I mean, he was the bomber guy. That was his life. He was brutally efficient at it. He said multiple times, if we had lost, I would have been tried as a war criminal. Right?
Yeah. And he had some great quotes about warfare. I mean, that's a stupid statement. He had some great quotes about excessive force and the importance of it.
Yeah.
Use it.
I think we talked about it one time before. We we were firebombing the crap out of Tokyo. I mean,
Yeah.
we had destroyed that city way more than than the two bombs did, the nuclear bombs did. I mean, not that getting nuked isn't bad either, but
yeah,
having your city destroyed by fire, that ranks up there with pretty shitty way to die, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, the reason why in O'Reilly's book, Killing the Rising Sun, apparently the reason why the firebombing stopped was because we ran through all of our munitions.
We ran out of napalm.
Yeah, it wasn't that America was LeMay was like, we don't have any more.
No, we used it all. I mean, that's true.
I mean, that's actually what happened. Like, no meme, no joke aside, that's what happened.
Yeah. They were deep into, I can't remember which book it was, but they were deep into getting the production ramped back up so they could have more. But yeah, we ran out. Yeah. We're laughing about it like it's funny. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
it was terrible. But
yeah, I mean, 85 million people dead. That's obviously nothing to laugh about. But I mean, I also think that there's something to be said for you got to put a tint of humor on things because it makes it more digestible.
Well, and it was total war. I mean,
it's total war. Like, come on.
It was the one example in our history of total war where everything went no holds barred, and the guys actually thought they were fighting for their very existence. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the world was at risk of going one way or another.
Would you say that World War I was total war?
It's hard for me to say it was total war, right? Because the entire industrial might of the United States wasn't marshaled.
Okay.
Yes, it was spread out all over the world. I mean, there was fighting going on everywhere, but it was not mass killing on the scale of World War II everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
whole world.
Front lines in France, Belgium, absolutely miserable, terrible.
Yeah.
But that was really that was where most of that terribleness was happening, right? I mean,
okay.
And, you could be in America in 1917 and not be affected by the war in Europe.
That's true.
You could not be in America in 1944 and not be affected by the World War.
Yeah, you'd be working in a factory, or you'd
be doing something,
or you were drafted.
You would be doing it right. If you were, capable, you'd be over there. If you were not capable, you'd be doing something to support the cause, or you'd be sacrificing in one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that would have been. So yeah, I don't put those two things in the same category at all.
Yeah.
And you think about the millions and millions of people worldwide that died in World War II, not military folks, right?
Yeah.
Fucking all the all the Holocaust, all the Russians that were killed, and all of the murder, the Chinese that died, I mean,
all the Japanese civilians in the firebombings.
Yeah, I mean, that's a scale we hopefully will never be at again. So
World War II that's one thing that's always I guess stopped in my mind. Something I've always paused on. I mean, I remember thinking about it in high school. That's the only time ever that there was no holds barred. Everyone went at it. Everyone threw. We came out bell rung. We came out with haymakers, and we threw the best things we had. There was no mutually assured destruction. There was a breakneck race for nukes. And then when it worked, the morning of July 16th, 1945, after the test worked, that's the morning we started shipping pieces to Tinian Island. I mean, it worked.
Right.
Ground Zero is still hot, and they were like, go. And then we drop them. There's never been anything like that, and I don't think there ever can be again.
Well, we hope not, right?
Yeah. Well,
we hope not. But yeah, I mean, that's a good example of just how desperate the situation was.
Yeah.
And how we talked about it before. To save lives, they had to do what they did.
Yes.
Right? Because the casualty numbers that it would have taken to actually take Japan, the mainland, would have been astronomical. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good reflection of just how desperate it was and how, what steps you will go to end something that was as bad as that was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because now, I mean, every war since then, there's always been the option of nuclear, and it's been avoided. So it's never been all out, nothing, Cold War inched towards it, but it didn't do it. So to bring that to the Cuban Missile Crisis, what was the role of ISR in that? I mean, I know like I actually don't know enough. I don't know as much about the Cuban Missile Crisis as I probably should.
Yeah, I mean, you probably should know more about it, right?
Yeah.
So if you put it in, in the whole context of what was going on in the world, right? So we're 15. I mean, let's call it 1960, right? So that's really kind of when everything starts, right after Castro decides that he's going to declare the Cuban government to be a socialist government. So you're 15 years after the end of World War II. So that's 15 years of the Cold War, right? And by the end of World War II, the Americans and the Russian and Soviets, we already know that that's going to be the future, right? There's no doubt. So we put our differences aside for a few years to defeat Hitler and the Japanese, but everyone knows that it's going to be a thing between the Soviets and Americans. So Russia is utterly decimated at the end of World War II, right? I mean, keep that in mind, right? The United States is the only superpower, right? When the war ends.
Yeah. We
have the nukes. We have this huge industrial base in the United States that's just churning and churning and keeps churning, right? Even after, we turn into an economic boom right after the war, and things are awesome in America. In Russia, millions and millions of people died, civilians, all over the place. The economy is shattered. Their land is destroyed because there was war in Russia, right?
Yeah.
The Germans made it a pretty fair peace into Russia.
Yeah, Barbarossa.
Right? So we're in kind of complete opposite ends when the Cold War starts. But what happens in 1950? Right? They get the nuke.
Yeah.
That kind of changes everything, right? So they're slowly climbing out of it. But the nuke kind of, in my mind, kind of calms things down a little. The Russian nuke kind of calms things down, right? Because now there's a counterbalance.
Yeah.
So we can't be as dominant as we want to be. But if you think about it, America is the only country after World War II that has the strength and the power to project troops around the world.
Yes.
Right. So that's when you start seeing American bases in Germany, American bases in Turkey, all around the periphery of the Soviet Union. United States either has allies or has actual bases sitting around that country. And that's obviously, something that's going to not be awesome for the premiers of the Soviet Union, right? So 1959, a rebel in Cuba who is tired of being under the thumb of his government, the Batista regime, overthrows that government and sides with the Soviets. And that's an opportunity. Do you think the Russians really cared about Fidel Castro?
No. Location,
right?
Yeah.
So the Americans have nuclear weapons in Turkey, sitting right outside of Russia, right outside, certainly within striking distance of multiple strategic targets all around, right? So ground launch nuclear weapons. The Russians see Cuba as an opportunity. The declassified documents say that the offer and the real thought to put nuclear weapons on the island didn't actually happen until basically the beginning of 1962. But one could argue, and I think pretty easily, that the foundation was being laid starting in 1960. Really. So the United States, just like I think we talked about it before, just like when the Korean War started, we were not ready for that, right? From an intelligence perspective, because we're focused on Soviet Union. Same thing happens in Cuba, right? In 1960, there are the National Security Agency, the organization that was predecessor to today's NSA, had 5 analysts who were looking at Cuba. 5, right? United States Air Force had 0 Spanish linguists in the inventory. Absolutely, right. And I'll get to that a little bit as we kind of work our way through how we actually responded. But so communism's the rage. contain it, got to stop it. So in 1960, when Castro declares, that he is in fact running at what he called a socialist state, communist state, things start, our ears start perking up, right? Because before that, there was hope that maybe he's going to be on our side, right?
Yeah, sure.
He had been to the United States. He spent some time here. He came to the United Nations before, and there was some hope that he was going to kind of be on our side. But when he declared, I think it was January 1960, so about a year after, so he took over on January 1st, 1959, so in the Cuban Revolution, actually, when he rolled into Havana. So it took about a year, and then when he finally declared, that sort of changed the American intelligence apparatus mindset towards Cuba. It wasn't a wait and see kind of thing anymore. So they got a lot more aggressive.
Yeah.
So in September of that year of 1960, and most people certainly don't know this, the Marines actually get credit for being the first folks to fly airborne ISR, airborne reconnaissance against the Cuban Castro regime. In September 1960, they started flying Skynight EF-10Bs along the periphery of the island. And these were electronic intelligence collectors looking for radars, right? Because they wanted to start getting an idea of, what the Cubans had, which, indigenous Cuban stuff was going to be nothing, right?
Yeah.
But what they were looking for was, are the Russians or the Soviets starting to give them arms and weapons and that type of stuff? So, in September 1960, that's really when the first airborne ISR started flying, and that was Marines.
I had no idea.
Yeah, Marines started flying in EF-10s. And then in December, so that was all electronic intelligence looking for radars and other weapon systems. And then in December, they started flying imagery missions. So again, not over land, they're off the coast. But the RF-8A Crusader was flying imagery missions, kind of doing the same thing. What are they putting along the coast? What kind of weapons are they putting along there? So that's kind of all happening airborne ISR wise. In October of 1960, the CIA starts flying U-2 missions, right? So a full 2 years before the actual, crisis, right? The CIA is already flying. They had a project called Idealist. So Project Idealist was basically the cover term, the program for all overflight, all U-2 overflight, wherever it was. So part of Project Idealist, they started flying really sporadically. I can't remember how many, but not frequently, once a month maybe, flying over the island. That lasted for 6-8 months or so, and then in 1961, the CIA stood up another program called Nimbus, Project Nimbus, which was specifically U-2 aircraft flying over Cuba. So Idealist was kind of the cover for all, wherever they were. In Nimbus, 1961, the CIA started directly flying. With that were increased missions over the island, and they also started. The U-2 was famous for taking pictures.
Yeah.
In 1961, they started putting an electronic intelligence collection capability on the plane as well. So the U-2 is flying over, taking pictures, and collecting radar emanations from the Soviet radars that are there. In 1961, when they started doing that, that's when the picture started coming together that, in fact, the Soviets had been shipping a lot of weapons and a lot of material to the island. They started getting, surface air missile radars were starting to be detected. Air defense, AAA, you use a radar to track that stuff too. And then also air intercept radars. So
air intercept radar?
Yeah. So the MiG-15s and the MiG-17s have a radar on them that they use to find air targets.
Okay.
Right. So if the Cubans now have, which at the time were fairly advanced fighters, right? MiG-15, MiG-17 were used in Vietnam, so these were pretty advanced at the time. But we started collecting, the air intercept radar off of those. So that meant that that the fighters now had the capability to find targets themselves and not necessarily be vectored in from the ground or whatever.
Okay.
So that, that increases the risk, right, to all those aircraft that are flying reconnaissance around and over the island. Now all of a sudden you got fighter aircraft that can find them and go take care of business. So that's all happening. 61. Through all this time, the United States Air Force isn't doing much of anything, right? The eye is on Russia, right? So it's not until early 1962 that the Air Force actually gets serious about it, or somebody tells them to get serious about it. Right?
So it was Marines. It was Marines and then CIA, but none of that was.
And there's some Navy stuff going on as well, but not until 1962. So basically a full 2 years, after the intelligence apparatus of the United States starts focusing its attention on Cuba, does the United States Air Force get involved? I mean, there's a couple factors, right? One, we didn't have very many SIGINT aircraft, just a few, and they are either in Europe or they're in the Pacific watching that side of Russia. So they're spread out to both sides. And then, like I mentioned before, there were no Spanish linguists. So the United States Air Force, no Spanish linguists at all. That started changing, in 1962. The Marines did a mission, and there were the increase in radars that they were collecting in this mission in 1962, I think it was January, was so great that there was no way you could ignore it anymore.
Okay.
It was basically, okay, a threshold has been crossed.
Yes.
Right. This is legit. The Russians are building up in Cuba. It's not just, hey, let's give Fidelito a couple things.
Yeah.
Right. So the fear starts being that the Russians are going to deploy a crap load of Russian troops into Cuba.
Okay.
Which they actually end up doing. There ends up being about 40,000 Russian forces in Cuba.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, during this crisis. Well, and those are guys that are training the Cubans. Those are guys that are building the missile sites because the Cubans don't know how to do it. Right? Yeah. They just don't.
Yeah.
But there are ground forces as well, and there's a combat capability on the ground, a Russian combat capability on the ground. So all that, finally, the Air Force, kind of gets its crap together, if you will, and decides that they need to get involved. So they send. They recall one of the C-132 Bravos, which was the for the Air Force at the time, and actually was a very capable SIGINT platform. So they bring one of those back from Europe, and then they start this crash program basically to find Spanish linguists.
Okay.
Right. So we got Russian linguists, we got Chinese, we got a Korean linguist. So the first thing they do is they go to Goodfellow Air Force Base, which is where we do all of our intelligence training. Even to this day, we still do it here, still do it there. And they start scouring the student population there. Okay, Sanchez, Rodriguez, trying to find guys who were native Spanish speakers, but who were also intelligence professionals, so they could, not have to worry about training that part as well, to teach them how to think as an intelligence person would or whatever. That is a successful program, right? And I am fortunate enough to know a lot of those guys. So a bunch of the initial
guys.
A bunch of the initial cadre of Spanish linguists are still with us. And they, we have a reunion. I used to be a Spanish linguist. So, I know a lot of these guys. We have reunions every year. We go talk to them, and the stories they tell they're just awesome.
That's insane.
So, so they took them out of Goodfellow basically. One of my great friends and mentors, his name's Segundo Espinosa, SP. He's in class at Goodfellow one day. They pull him out. They give him a little test. If he can understand the Spanish, and make him listen to a Cuban cut, a Cuban intelligence cut, basically. And then he's on a plane. They give him orders to go to to go down to the Keys, a place called Cujo Key, And he gets there, and there's a bunch of other guys that they rounded up from around the Air Force, and they put them on the back of the C-130s, and they start doing it. They start doing it.
I was going to say a lot. That's what you talked about in From Kites to Cold War about the German speakers in World War II. A lot of it, and it kind of felt like fucking give them some headphones, slap them on the plane.
Yeah, man. This is the exact same thing. It's they got as many intelligence guys as they could, but they also ended up grabbing cooks, supply dudes, maintenance guys, whoever they could get that they thought had the competency or the capacity to do the intelligence mission.
Okay.
So they all go down to they all end up down in Cujo Key, which is down by Key West basically, and they start flying. I mean they do what airmen do. They become really good at their job. Yeah. And it's, airmen always surprise you. And to this day, when you let them, do their thing, they'll always, produce results. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So they started, they started flying, and they started producing intelligence almost immediately. And because they're airmen, they're focused on Air Force kind of stuff. And, so they become experts on the air defense systems and, what the surface-to-air missiles can do, the capabilities, how many people are there, all that kind of stuff. So it's, it's a pretty cool success story at the end, right, for the Air Force, because they're able to once again show that, despite the fact that they were woefully underprepared, that they were able to, bring an asset back, get some airmen to go do the mission, get on the mission, and start producing intelligence that without a doubt helped President Kennedy kind of understand the overall situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, just adaptability, just survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did it in World War II. Did it in World War I. That's you talk again. From Kites to Cold War. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's that is. Thank you for that, because that's an underlying theme of the book, right?
It is. Well, no, but really, yeah, not just a plug. I mean, that is a thing. Is like. We look, I know at least I do as a civilian, I'm just like, well, that's just what they do. That's the Air Force, and they do the thing, right? And the CIA does the thing. But it's like a lot of this stuff starts as just like no one knows what's going on. Your hair's on fire with your pants around your ankles, and then it's just like someone comes in, and they just drop the schlong on the table. LeMay, Kennedy, and it's just like, yo, we gotta fix all this shit right now. And it's just a brutal crash course. It's what Commander Fravor, the naval pilot, says. The Air Force is a self-cleaning oven. It's something brutal happens, but then it pops out on the other end. And next thing you know, you come out of World War II with Strategic Air Command. Or now you're coming out of 62 with, an effective program for ISR and airborne radar. And correct?
Yeah, right. And I mean, the story, of course, doesn't end, right? It shows the Air Force, the United States Air Force Security Service, which is, the intel service basically for the Air Force at the time. That there's more to the world's geopolitical problems than the Soviet Union. Yeah. And really from that time till now, there's a lot more capable, there's a wider expanse of capability. You don't shut down after these things are over. So, the Spanish linguist capability remains after Cuba. It doesn't, okay, we're done, everything's over, 12 days, 17 days, whatever it was, everything's done, go back to being a cook. Yeah. Right? So they figure out that, hey, we got to have some capability in the hopper whenever these things happen. Yeah. And I think, throughout the 60s, throughout the 70s, that's that remains, and it helps us out a lot, because we're not caught off guard as much as we were when particularly when the Korean War and the Cuban Missile Crisis started. We were just zero capability. Vietnam we could talk about a little bit. The good thing for Air Force ISR with Vietnam is it was such a slow buildup that it wasn't just it wasn't an overnight kind of requirement. You could tell in the early 60s that something was going to happen in Vietnam. The Air Force was able to kind of keep pace and not be caught, so far off guard like they were in the other ones. So let's wrap up the story of Airborne ISR, right? So spring of 62, I think that's kind of where we are, right? We got the Air Force flying finally. The other services are flying. CIA's flying. in spring of 62, the U-2 is flying multiple missions a week over the island at this point, and they detect the SA-2 missile. Right, and they hadn't seen that before. So if you remember, the SA-2 is the missile that shot down Gary Powers.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
That's going to scare people.
Yeah.
And I think the point I wanted to make, is even though they identified that on the island are SA-2 missiles, the urgency of what was going on, and this is spring of 62, right? So this is before, the famous nuclear pictures come out and all that kind of stuff. The urgency of what's going on the island is such that they keep flying anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So, right. They know that the Soviets have put the SA-2 missile in Cuba, that it's operational, and then it has shot down a U-2 before, right?
Yeah.
But they keep flying anyway. So I think that kind of just underlines how important, at least the administration thought things were on the island at the time. And those flights continued until basically the end of the thing. Even after, on October 27th, I think it was, a U-2 was shot down. Right?
Tag another one, yeah.
Right. So they tag another one. That's Rudolph Anderson is flying that one, and he gets shot down, but they don't stop.
Yeah.
Right? When Gary Powers got shot down in 1960, everything came to a halt.
Yeah.
Right. No more overflights. They even slowed down the collection that was going on off the periphery, off the coast of the countries. That's not the case with this one. I mean, it's full steam ahead. Yeah, we lost a U-2, but this is so important that we have to keep doing this. Right. So, so that was 27 October, but the flight where they got the pictures of the missile sites was on 14 October. So kind of putting all that together, right? They had 2 weeks before, not even 2 weeks before, they had collected imagery that showed them that the Russians were installing nuclear, at least nuclear sites. I don't think they knew at the time that the missiles were actually in place, which come to find out later they were, and they were in fact operational.
Yeah.
Right? Which, okay, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I think that, that kind of ties all of the airborne ISR stuff, that was going on. Of course, there's so much more you can talk about, right? But, the Navy and the Marines are flying, low-level fighter aircraft over the island, buzzing the sites, taking pictures as close to the sites as they possibly could. I don't know if you've watched the movie, but
13 days.
Those fighter pilots that were buzzing the sites, that actually happened.
Peppered, yeah.
So just a whole bunch of brave guys, doing what they needed to do because, like we said before, they thought that the world was in the balance.
Yeah, and again, you're 17 years out of World War II.
Yeah,
a lot of them remember it. They're like, hey, it could come right back.
Yeah, and you find out the Russians have nuclear weapons that could reach Washington, New York City, right?
Yeah.
That's a thing, and there's no warning. It's super close.
Yeah.
Right? So that whole situation, most people think of airborne ISR and the Cuban Missile Crisis, and all they think of is the U-2 because that's what they know. Hey, we flew a U-2 over and it found these missile sites, which is true, right? Yeah. But for 2 years plus before that, we were conducting airborne ISR against the Cubans, and throughout the whole time, we were also doing more collections. So it's pretty robust thing. I'm gonna put all this together and write an article, to kind of capture it all. Probably try to publish it, to coincide with the 60th anniversaries. I think that'd be kind of cool. So not next year, but the year after.
Yeah.
That'll give me time to hopefully COVID will go away. I can actually go to the archives and do some research.
God willing.
Right. All that stuff. So
yeah.
What questions do you have?
Yeah. All I was gonna say is, I was gonna bring up the movie 13 Days. I was gonna say that's accurate.
Yeah. I mean that the piece that I mentioned.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. I know it's obviously
sure.
Hollywoodized. Right?
Yeah. It's sensationalized a little bit. But the good thing is the tapes are out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can read the transcripts and you can actually listen to the audio.
which is insane.
Right?
Listen to the tape from the Oval Office or the situation, whatever. You can listen to Kennedy and the top dogs talking about nukes on Cuba.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah, you can listen to the tapes. You can read all of the intelligence reports that were coming out. So you can, for a historian, you can tell a pretty good story. Put it all together and do a fairly decent, accurate job of laying out what actually happened, which is pretty cool. The movie sensationalized a little bit, but there a lot of it's spot on. A lot of it's really good.
Doesn't the pilot say like, did you get shot at? And he was like, no, I must have hit some birds. Yeah. And they're like, you hit some 20-millimeter birds? And he's like, apparently, right?
No, that probably didn't happen. I mean,
no.
Right.
I don't know, man. With LeMay, I could see LeMay being like, yeah, you got shot. And, no, we got hit by birds. And LeMay's, literally right there, like, you're telling me you didn't get shot. Like, LeMay is just itching. And he's like,
yeah, right.
Fired.
Must have. Let's go get him.
He's just like, yeah, I could see LeMay just fucking furious.
Right?
Yeah. But there's some in Raven Rock by Garrett Graff. There's actually a cool story from that I never knew until like last summer. But I forget who it was. It was someone that was, maybe it was Deputy Secretary. He was someone that was in the Senate. And he was someone high up and close to Kennedy. I can't for the life of me remember what made him. It wasn't just that he was a senator. I don't remember what, but he was somehow vital to like national defense.
Okay.
Kennedy. And so when they found out this was happening, but they were still trying to like keep it like low key.
Yeah.
He was on vacation or the Senate was on recess or whatever. He was down in the Gulf of Mexico fishing, right? Going back to see the constituents, maybe schmooze with some donors, whatever, just doing whatever these guys do, right? But he's out in the Gulf of Mexico. A Marine helicopter comes, and the way they describe it is it's thundering over the horizon, blowing up the rotor wash, and they see it, and they're like, the hell is that? Shit you not. They throw down, like, they say a bottle. It was something floating, and it says like climb aboard, and they drop like a ladder. So the guy's just like, but it doesn't even say what it is in case that someone down there is, for whatever Cold War paranoia somehow linked to the Soviets. They just say like, we need the senator to come aboard. So they drop down this thing, right? So the senator goes up. The helicopter then, so they get on. They say, you need to be in Washington now. They fly to this is all true. They fly to an oil rig, put them on a faster helicopter. That flies back onto mainland United States. They put him in the back of a fighter jet.
What?
I swear to God, this isn't Raven Rock. This guy, Garrett Graff, he's a professor at Georgetown. He used to work for Politico. His book was the best-selling book on Audible in 2019. So this isn't some like, and then the aliens came. No, it's like, I remember my jaw was on the floor. They put him in the back of a fighter jet and hightail it to D.C. to show him the pictures taken.
What's it called?
Raven Rock by Garrett Graff. Garrett Graff. Graff. It's all Raven Rock is one of the nuclear bunkers. Site R, NORAD, Mount Weather.
Yeah.
It's all about. It's a history of that. But his Cuban Missile Crisis chapter.
Yeah, that's cool.
Fantastic. That's
I'll check it out. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's insane. But yeah, that's how it starts. Is like they come back and he's just like, what the hell is going on? And like they paint the imagery. They come in and like Kennedy's got like the pictures on the table and just like shows it to him. And this guy's just like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Like that's not cinematic. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it puts it all into perspective. But
can you imagine though? I mean, you got to think, right? One of the greatest things about our country is where we are.
Yes.
We're safe.
My God. Oh my God.
Right.
I mean, it is.
At the time, right? Now we've been under threat from nuclear attack forever, but at the time, this is a safe place.
Yeah.
Mexico ain't invading you.
Yeah.
And Canada's not invading you. This is a safe place to be. And then from one day to the next, all of a sudden that's gone.
Yeah, you have to really think of that. Yeah, that's been there forever. It's just we're separated. I mean, even Pearl Harbor was Hawaii. It wasn't L.A., right? Yeah. I mean, we knew there were some U-boats off the coast, but I mean, okay, whatever. Cool little tin can, whatever, Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You got to come through Mexico or over the North Pole. No, you're not doing that. And then just like that,
there's nuclear weapons 90 miles from Key West.
I mean, I imagine it's the same feeling as, obviously you can look at Pearl Harbor and go, that must have felt like 9/11, right? I remember I was 11 years old on 9/11, but I generally, remember the feeling.
Yeah.
But I would say the Cuban Missile Crisis is probably pretty similar to it, the sense of vulnerability. Twin Towers is, okay, a second plane hit, oh my God. But then it's like they hit the Pentagon. Then it's like, what the hell is going on, right? We're invincible. I imagine it was that feeling. Right?
It felt a lot. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that, but it probably felt a lot like that.
Yeah.
That day, obviously I'm older than you, and I was at work on that day, and that you just had this sinking feeling in your gut, that holy crap, this is actually come to it's come home.
Yeah. It's not not a movie trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not safe here. I mean, attacks had happened. They had 93. They had hit the World Trade Center already.
Mm-hmm.
The domestic stuff, but nothing on that scale.
No.
Nothing on that scale. And I bet, especially for the people in the know, that was one of those kind of moments where, holy crap, the Russians can kill us right now if they want to.
Yeah. What was, I think the estimate they did was the missiles on Cuba. I think they said 1,600 seconds.
Yeah.
That was the math they did, 1,600 seconds from Cuba to DC.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But yeah, I mean, you got to think, because it's not like that's some like Fox or CNN fear mongering, right? Imagine the helicopter coming. You're a senator, and you're like, who are these? Do they know who the fuck I am? And they take you to an oil rig, like, oh, I'm a senator. You're taking me to an oil rig, and then they bring you to an air base with just some poor schmuck that's like, get in the back, put on the oxygen,
right?
Flooring it. You probably got some fat senator just like.
Try not to puke.
Yeah, try not to puke. What the hell is going on?
That's crazy. Yeah, I never heard that story.
Yeah, it's insane. I don't know. I've tried to get Garrett Graff to come on this podcast so many times, and he said yes so many times and then ghosted me. So I've stopped trying. Garrett, if you're listening, I doubt you are. Please come on and talk to me and Tyler. But
that's a cool story. I want to hear it.
But you got to think about, what I was getting to is in the know, like you're saying. It's not fear mongering. This whole thing happens, and it's and then it's Kennedy saying, you can almost see the imagery, right? Just turning the picture out with his fingers and like sliding it across the table.
Yeah.
And being like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
That moment where they all find out that this is real, and
it's right there. And even now, like what you said, now we're under constant nuclear threat. Yeah. But with that, again, with them, it's 17 years removed, where it wasn't just a threat. It was, we used it twice.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Yeah, like, you didn't know. You knew everybody had a, I'm not going to start a nuclear war kind of policy, right? But did you really know?
Yeah, it was 17 years in the rearview mirror. Yeah. It was closer to then than 9/11 is to us.
Of course, yeah.
It's right there, right? It's the invasion of Iraq to now. It's like if right now we were like building up on Iran's border, and everyone, future historians would look back at it and go, you got to remember, these guys were 17 years removed from invading two countries.
Yeah.
Nothing's off the table, right? So it's that same, we're 17 years removed from 85 million dead, the shattering of the world, complete change in global balance of power, and then dropping 2 nuclear bombs on the sovereign nation of Japan. That's right there.
Yeah, it wasn't out of the realm of the possible, for sure. And the people who are leading the military and the government to some extent were in the war.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was how they made their mark for the most part.
I mean, who the hell is, as we were saying, I know you got to go, but who the hell? I mean, think LeMay. Like, we're talking now, with the recordings of him in the Oval Office, but it's like, he's literally the guy that was like the head bomber in World War II. So not only is it in the rearview mirror, he remembers it.
Right, and he's ready to put that face back on if he needs to.
Yeah, probably a little more ready than he should have been. Probably a little more eager than he should have been. Right? Hey, I love him. I'm not hating, but I mean, I think Kennedy said, LeMay is not the one you want choosing the shots about the battle, but he is the one you want leading you into the battle. Absolutely. I mean, he was a Rottweiler. I mean,
he was.
I love him. I'm not shitting on him, but I mean, probably a little too antsy for it. But
no, he was the airman that the United States needed in war.
Yes.
We needed that kind of guy to be ruthless and to do what had to be done.
Yes. You don't want an attack dog that you have to wake up. You want a grizzly bear that you have to actively pull down.
He was born for that.
Richard Rhodes says in The Dark Sun, he quotes LeMay, who said, "I will never forget how unprepared we were after Pearl Harbor. I will never forget when our current rate of loss of, what was it, B-17s or B-29s? What was the one we had right at the beginning, right when we went into Europe?
B-17.
He goes, I will never forget how unprepared we were. And with the B-17s we had, and at the rate we were losing them, he used a very simple equation, and the rate that we were replenishing them, factored all together, we had 30 days left of an Air Force. And now we know World War II and the American war machine and what FDR put into, and we know. But at the time, again, you have to look at it then. He goes, I will never forget how unprepared we were, and that will never happen again. So again, you got that guy now.
Yeah, in 1943, it wasn't a certain outcome.
Yeah, not at all.
The 8th Air Force was taking an ass whooping over the skies of Europe. I mean, it was rough.
Yeah,
it was rough.
Yeah,
and that is why he ran Strategic Air Command with an iron fist and refused for them not to be prepared.
I mean, the fucking logo.
Literally
is an iron fist.
Right.
It is. Yeah. Dude, he went. I could go on LeMay for hours. I know you said you had 45 minutes, and I've kept.
Yeah, all good, man. Hey, that was awesome.
Dude, that was awesome. I think we need to do a part 2. That wasn't enough, but I'll leave the ball in your court. You get back to me on that.
All right, man.
All right, my man. Thank you so much. Tyler Morton, Colonel Tyler Morton, PhD, from Kites to Cold War. Available on Amazon. What?
Good stuff.
Oh, I was gonna say available on Amazon and Kindle. Fucking good. It's brilliant, and like I said in the first time we talked, it's actually kind of funny when he goes into World War or the very beginning of like hot air balloons and shit. A cannon going over his head and then turning around like "Viva la France" and a middle finger. It's like the original Top Gun like cockpit fighter. It goes back to powdered wigs and using leeches to cure cancer. Yeah. But I'm going to go off on a tangent, and I got to let you go. So, Tyler, thank you very much for coming on. And next time, bro. Stay safe. God bless. Thank you.
See you later, brother.